Back with another tier list. Taking a break from the fighters and stuff like that, I wanted to talk about something that is equally as important to me as shorts are, if not more important. I feel like these little details get overlooked, you know, like championship belts, shorts, things like that. I know you might be like, oh bro, you're gay, who cares what fucking the belt looks like, who cares what shorts they're wearing, but they're iconic, you know. You can look back on an era of the sport and associate it with, you know, the shorts or the belt or these little intricacies that we have in the sport. This will be the last video with this horrible yellow tinted lighting, so I will no longer look like an orc. Today we're doing the championship belts in MMA. We've got all of the titles I could think of from all of these different organizations here, from UFC to Rizin. We've even got the Pride belts on here, so I'm going to rank these, and the tiers we have is, of course, chicken salad, A, B, C, and then studded emo hot topic looking at. Listen, I know some of you watching were wearing these fucking belts in the 2000s, bro. 2010s even. I know you watching this video had this fucking black and white studded belt, bro. Probably had your lip pierced and shit. Can't escape that life, no matter how much you may try. We're going to start with the order that the belts are in down here, just to make it easier. So we're going to start with the KSW belt. Now, the KSW belt is actually fire. Now, one thing I will say is I prefer a big belt. In my opinion, the best championship belt ever made is the heavyweight WWE belt from like the 2010s, the big gold, you know. That is a championship belt. When I think of a title, that's the belt I think of. This belt represents that very well. It also has the KSW in white through the middle, which is clean. I love the KSW belt. I've always kind of thought it was fire, so A tier for me, just on looks. Obviously, the looks will come into it. Most of it will be judged on looks, but some of it will also be judged on the legacy of it, what it meant to the sport. Perfect example, this next belt, the original UFC belt, in my opinion, chicken salad. Not only because it looks really nice, but because it's just so iconic, you know. I honestly never thought that they would change the belt. Even more so, I never thought they would change the belt to the fucking one we have now. Dana and some of the guys that are in charge of the UFC, they are big on old school, you know, paying homage to the roots and the legacy of the sport and stuff like that. And I honestly thought Dana would be like, no, this is the belt. 20 years, 30 years time, this is going to be the belt. But no, they actually changed it. So to my surprise, I really like the original UFC belt personally. I don't know how everyone else feels about it. I think it's 100 times better than this next one. This one has grown on me a little bit, but ultimately I'd still put it in B tier. It just looks like a fucking pound coin. Like, I can't explain it. It looks like a medallion. It looks like a necklace or something, like jewelry. It doesn't look like a world title. It's a very weird... It's almost like a belt. Like, if you would have gone back to like 2014 and showed somebody this belt and said, this is the new UFC design for the belts that they're changing to in a couple of years, they would have said, no, it isn't. Like, they would never change that. That looks fucking awful. But no, to our surprise, they changed the belt. The one cool thing I do like about this belt is the title defense integration into it. So every time you defend your title, you get a ruby, I should say. You get a red ruby around it starts with the left, then it goes around the middle, I think, or it might even go around the middle first. I couldn't even tell you, to be honest, but there's plenty of ruby slots on these belts. I don't think it will ever be filled. I think the person that has the most rubies right now is probably Izzy with his first title run. Not too sure. The rubies are cool. You know, not hating on the rubies. Not really even hating on the belt too much, but it's just a bit, you know, I'm not really a fan. Next, we'll go with the BMF belt. I'm actually going to put this in front of this one. I think this BMF belt suits the aesthetic more of like these modern UFC belts. Not only that, it's silver, which I'm a big fan of silver belts. I think the interim belt should be silver as well. Obviously, people have been screaming for that. I really don't know why the UFC don't do that. Like, it's such a perfect idea and it would look so sick as well. You ultimately want more belts. You want a wall with all the UFC belts you can win. And the interims are silver, the undisputeds are gold. You know what I'm saying? I just think it's pretty dumb that they're not silver. But the BMF belt, it's a little bit silly as far as why it exists, but I don't mind the look of it, man. It looks like it looks expensive, you know what I'm saying? Next, we're going to go with the Bellator belt. I just realised I don't have Strikeforce on here, but what I will say is I'll kind of put Bellator and Strikeforce in one because the belts do look kind of similar, and I'm going to put it in A tier. I'm going to put it behind KSW. I like the Bellator, the Strikeforce belts. I even kind of like the Cage Warriors belt, as we'll get onto later. They look a bit more tacky, but they remind me of like that WWE like cruiserweight belt in the 2000s feel. You know what I'm saying? The little hints of red. I like the Bellator belts. I like the Strikeforce belt, and yeah, I think A tier behind KSW. The next we've got the old ONE belt. I believe this is the old design, and they've changed to a new one, which I'll get onto in a second. C tier for me. Now this is people's favorite belt design. A lot of people say this is the best one. Looks a bit too much like a boxing belt. I don't like boxing world titles. I think they look fucking terrible. You know what I'm saying? It's literally like a belt, like a fucking, like the WBC for example. I don't like it. It just looks, when MMA champions hold these belts on their shoulders, and when they have two belts, it looks meaningful. You know what I'm saying? But these belts, as in the ONE FC and the kind of boxing style, the shape, they just look so light. You know what I'm saying? I feel like you could wrap like 7 around your fucking waist and be fine, where you definitely couldn't wrap many of these other belts around your waist. You know what I'm saying? These are heavy, these are big, they're expensive. I'm sure the ONE FC belt is expensive, but you know what I'm saying. So C tier for me. But the new ONE FC belt I'd put behind the UFC belt, because it has kind of grown me a little bit. The problem that I have with the ONE FC belt is they're a bit too big. Like, look how fucking big these belts are, bro. They're absolutely massive. So they are a little bit too big, but I can't be like, oh, this belt's too small, this belt's too big. You know what I'm saying? I'm not fucking Goldilocks out here, bro. B tier, solid belt. The Rizin belt, I really like the shape of it. A tier for me, in front of Bellator probably. I like I don't know, look at it, you know what I mean? It's a beautiful belt, bro. Really fuck with the Rizin belt. When it sits on the shoulder, because of its more like rectangle shape, it kind of looks like it's meant to kind of sit perfectly on your shoulder, you know what I'm saying? Whereas like the UFC belt kind of does have that look, but it's such a weird shape that you see some champions are like almost, they don't know how to fucking hold it because it's such an awkward shape. Next, we're going to go with the PFL belt. I really fuck with the PFL belt, to be honest. I'm going to put it in the front of B tier. I like it, man. You know, accompanied with the $1 million check, it suits it. You know what I'm saying? It looks like a heavy belt, expensive, and it's got a beautiful little shine to it. The UFC belt looks a lot more gold, looks a lot more expensive, but it just doesn't. I don't know what it is, bro. I just don't fuck with this new UFC belt. So, I'm just basing my opinions around that. The PFL belt is nice. I do like the shape of it as well. It's big. You know, that middle piece is, when it's around the waist, like it's it's huge, bro. Pause. Next, we've got the Invicta belt. I like the Invicta belt. Not really too much to say about it. Probably the front of C tier. I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. I'll come back to that maybe. If it bugs me that much, I'll come back to it. But I do like the design. It looks a bit more like a boxing belt again, but I don't mind it too much. Next, we've got the Cage Warriors belt. A lot of people hate this one. I'm gonna put it there. Again, reminds me of the cruiserweight belt. It doesn't really look that expensive, but it looks like a nice belt to have on the wall. It's nice and light. It looks like quite thin, quite flat, not a lot of grooves, not a lot of engravings, just a pretty standard regional belt. Well, not regional, Cage Warriors is huge now, but you know what I'm saying. B tier. So we'll go with the LFA belt. I'm going to put this in A tier in front of Bellator. Big, gold, shiny fucking belt, easy to read. I love the shape, it looks like that sort of heavyweight WWE belt kind of feel, like I was saying. Looks expensive. It looks like a real world title, bro, you know what I'm saying? So shout out LFA, their belt's sick. Next, we're going to go with the Pride Grand Prix belts. Now, I'm not too sure if I've got this right, so forgive me, but I'm pretty sure this is a Pride Grand Prix belt, and this is just a championship from Pride. Like, for example, heavyweight champion, heavyweight Grand Prix, you know what I'm saying? If I've got that wrong, I apologize, but here's two belt designs from Pride, either way. So the Grand Prix belt, straight in A tier for me, behind the Rizin one, in front of LFA. The shapes of the LFA and the Pride one aren't too different, but just these gems around the end, and the fact that it's a Pride belt, that's a relic. You cannot win that anymore. It doesn't exist, so A tier for me. And then the actual Pride championships, I'm going to go C tier, front of C tier. A little bit weird. Obviously have that silver feel that we were just talking about, so that does win it points. I think the silver's kind of suits Pride with the white ring, you know, the blue ropes, like the silver, it kind of fits the aesthetic. So yeah, I rate it, but compared to these other belts, I think it scores quite low. And then last and least, studded emo hot topic looking at, not like the BKFC belt. Look at this picture of Conor holding it and tell me that belt doesn't look like fucking shit, bro. I mean, when I said earlier that the new UFC belt looks like a pound coin, this looks like a fucking pound coin. I don't like it. Ugly looking belt in my opinion. Straight in the bottom tier. Yeah, not really much to say about that one. If you fuck with the belt, how it looks, fair enough. It looks copper to me. It looks like a bronze medal. But yeah, I don't really fuck with BKFC or their belt, to be honest. That's it. Thank you very much for watching. I have a bunch of other ideas, like cool little unique tier list ideas, but I don't just want to spam the tier list, but all my other videos seem to just fall flat on their face. YouTube loves the tier list. It throws them straight into the algorithm, so, you know, forgive me, but the game is the game. Shout out everybody that's been subscribing. We're creeping up on 600 now. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video, there's a playlist of all the rest of my tier list. Check out my last video, which is if Jake Paul went into the UFC, what are some actual winnable fights to get him on some sort of run. Appreciate everybody watching. If you like the video, like the video. If you like the video, subscribe. My name's Harry. I talk about fights. Bang. There's a picture of me literally 5 seconds ago before I did this outro.